It's worse than having a drink.
Oh, that was a nightmare.
Well, no, it'll be a special day for the whole county. It'll be like evergreen insurance guy.
Yeah, I can imagine. It was very-
I'm like a seizure.
No,
No, forget it.
I thought he would have had fun.
No, it's.
Lisa didn't know. Yeah, Lisa didn't know.
I saw a really.
She was on.
She just built a
Like,
spaceship. But I wouldn't have seen it if I didn't check my email today.
And I missed those.
Yeah, we need to do like a flag or something.
The kids want to go a million.
It's not a big deal. Like you said, we took care of it.
I just don't
They got away with
know.
I'm you're like me. On the weekends, I'm like, I'm not on.
So.
It's good. I like it. It's all good. But it was good. I liked it. We're all like,
Yeah, yeah.
I want to hear the backstory of that whole thing too.
Me too.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Good to see you. We're going to kick it off with communal dining. All right.
Dining, did you say dining?
I said dining, communal dining.
I don't see any food.
We'll fix that.
Okay, all right.
I knew I forgot something.
Yeah, Jared, darn you.
Yeah, right. Bummer. Sorry. It's 6 o'clock too, so. Before you this evening is an item that we talked about a few weeks ago at a prior work session, and you've also seen the first draft of an ordinance to establish what we call a CODA, a communal outdoor dining area. So the rationale for this, and I know at that meeting not everybody was present, so I will give a little bit more of the backstory again. Basically, back at the beginning of the pandemic, in response to the pandemic, the governor passed and the state legislation, I believe, passed an ordinance or a statute that allowed for people to locate within public rights of way and to serve alcohol and food and alcohol. So that emergency regulation is set to expire here on May 30th. So in response to that, in order to keep basically what we have had the last 2 years, which is the Minor Street Marketplace, Minor Street being closed and having the number of restaurants and businesses having encroachment agreements out on the streets where they're allowed to serve food and alcohol. There are a couple means in which we could still maintain that as a city. This is the one that we feel is most appropriate, this CODA. So the CODA allows for outdoor food and beverages to be served on public rights of way. So there's a number of restrictions or a number of regulations within the statute in order to set up this CODA. One of those regulations is for the business community, and in this case, the business community in conjunction with city staff to work together on putting forward a security and control plan. So at the last meeting, when we discussed this item, we did not have that security or control draft plan. Now we do. We're fine tuning it a little bit, but it was attached to the packet. It goes over a number of different provisions, but the main goal behind it is really twofold. One, we're proposing that this outdoor dining area be created, but under normal course of business, the business owners would be restricted to their standard encroachment areas. So same exact thing as last year. And without this, we would not be able to have, any, especially alcohol out on Minor Street like we do today. And then there's a second tier. So first one, normal course of business, everyday operation. The second tier is more for what we're we call it events anyway. And there's a calendar in this report too that talks about the different events. So within those events, there's realistically two types of events. One is more of a weekly occurrence where there's either a cornhole bags tournament or there's a band. So last summer, there were bands on Tuesdays and Thursdays. One was at one end of Meyer Street, the 1400 block, and the other was then on the 1600 block. So one's closer to where Tommy Knockers is, and the other one was then set up closer to westbound and down. What is being proposed within these restrictions is that the CODA restrictions be loosened for that event and allow people to have alcohol within that block area and to be able to carry it outside the encroachment agreements, but not outside of the block. Because we're still trying to keep people within that block space so that you can take your beverage and go up to the band and listen a little closer or dance, or maybe on those nights you can still throw bags in kind of down the middle of the street. Signage would be required for that. Staff would happily work with the business community to set up signage at the end, no alcohol beyond this point. And then the last type of event would be more or less what the 4th of July is for the city. So the CODA is actually a larger area, and we're proposing that on the 4th of July, that the entire CODA area, and as I mentioned, there is a map printed in black and white, which probably doesn't help as much, but it shows the entire 14th, 15th, and 1600 blocks. Yep, exactly, of Minor, and then the park down through, I always get confused, I think that's 15th, no, excuse me, 16th. And then along Idaho Mall, because we do have some people set up along Idaho Mall. That is what we're proposing to be the entire CODA area. And we're only proposing that be enacted for events such as the 4th of July. The main reason behind that is it is a large gathering, a good festival, and we have added security already in place there. So that is why we're trying to keep it somewhat restricted to that time frame.
For 4th of July only, Jared?
Unless there's another event, we do have a calendar, but unless there's another event that we think is going to be that big, it's only right now, I believe, going to be for 4th of July. Yeah.
I'm confused on the second option you gave. Where is that restricted to?
So on
16th and down, right?
So yeah, if on this calendar, this is a sample calendar. So we
I
have
see that.
events like Tuesday, concert 1600 block from 6 to 8.
So that would only be that area.
That would only be the 1600 block. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or if the cornhole, that whole street.
Yeah, that block again. So because
That
the
block again,
cornhole,
okay.
well, the cornhole,
Is in one
it
block.
rotates blocks. But
Okay.
yes, the goal is to only have it one block at a time. Especially with the cornhole, the nice thing about it is it rotates through. Everybody gets a chance at having that outdoor event. We also understand that this is new. And we're kind of here to see how it works, a trial run. If everything is successful, we would probably come back to you and talk about a very similar program for next year, or maybe even an expanded program. If we have challenges, we do have enforcement means. We talked in the security plan about such things as, either a branded cup or a cup with a sticker on it. We did have one business earlier today at our economic recovery task force meeting want to go another step even and say, we want to make sure that cup came from our place on this night. So we're going to put like the date and ticket number
That's
on
cool.
it. That is not required under the security plan. The branded cup or sticker is, but that is something that came out of our meeting that that one business may may choose to do.
And Jared, just speaking of choose to do, just to confirm, this is only for businesses who want to participate in the quota. If they don't want to, well, then that's a prerogative.
Absolutely. So if you wanted to have your outdoor space with alcohol, you would have to participate in the quota. But you, as a business owner, could state, okay, sorry, I'm going to pull an example. This is not indicative of anybody's business, but let's just say that there's a band next to Tommy Knocker that one evening. I forget if that's Tuesday or Thursday, but let's just state that either Two Brothers or the Cidery did not want to allow alcohol outside of their space. They don't have to. They can still state, this is our space. You have to maintain it within this area. That is their choice, 100%.
Do you think that's gonna be confusing for people that are watching somebody else drink beer across the way? I know that you guys talked about this, but I thought I'd bring it up. What do you think that was gonna look like if that in fact does happen? For all I know, everybody's in on the coda right now. I don't know.
Right.
But
Yeah, we do have a number of
Businesses
people from the business community here in support of the quota. That is a good question. We are going to have to do some kind of trial and error on those things.
So, Jared, so for not last week, week before, we was with the yards, let's say,
Yes,
where they have,
technically they have 2 liquor licenses.
yeah,
One on either side of the street. Yep.
correct. And also with residential on both sides of their new commercial purchase.
Mm.
So I think they said, no, we're gonna try to shut down at 10 AM. They're not.
PM.
Or I'm sorry, PM. They're not gonna wanna do a stage and a band behind on the minor street side of their business to till 2 AM with loud music, etc., with residential nearby.
Correct.
But they still have to abide by, even at 2 AM on their curfew here, the noise ordinance.
So, yeah, so the yards haven't applied for a quota. They certainly could. You are correct. They've got the 2 liquor licenses.
Right.
In this area, most of the businesses closed down quite a bit before that. There are some that do stay open later into the evening. The bands that are a part of the events in the quota are bands put on by the ISMA, and they are scheduled to go from 6 to 8, if I'm not mistaken. So
Okay.
those, at least in the street, are proposed to be wrapping up at 8.
So I'm asking, you've got 7 AM to 2 AM for the quota? Is that-
We did that because we do have some businesses such as Main Street that has a liquor license that serves mimosas in the morning. And then we also have people who, the Vintage Moose does go until a little later in the evening. I understand what you're saying. That is why we had made it so broad at this point.
But 2 AM seems to be more of a problem than 7 AM to me.
I would have to just ask how many people are actually at the Vintage Moose at 2 AM. I mean, I would
If
think
it's
it's
just for that
a
one
handful
business,
of
then,
people, so.
And that can be
I mean,
pulled back.
we're
to-
pulling out the one
because they
business
still
that.
have their own
You raise
controlled
your hand.
patio area, right?
John's
That
there,
the
yeah.
venues, They would just be taken away from the street.
That's true. That is true.
I just
You are
want to make
correct.
sure you guys are
I'm not trying to. be
on the
unfair to
coda.
them, but-
There's 2 bits of it, right? So the first part is that allows outdoor dining. The second bit that allows on certain special events that we program in at the beginning of the summer. That's part of the coda security plan that goes to state. Those won't change. But on an everyday night, let's say it's like a Monday night, I would be able to have, like, say I'm at S Tech, I don't want to have a margarita outside, I could do that. Or if I'm at the Moose in their area, I could have a beer outside in their area and I could do that. But in those instances, I would not be allowed to leave their prescribed area within the
Their
coda.
premises, right?
But you could stay until 2 AM, let's say even.
Well, they're open till, if they're open till 2 AM.
Right.
Well, if they're up, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my question, John, great question. Jared, so like down at the yards, their new place that they've applied for, got approved to, they can stay till 2 AM.
if I'm not mistaken, that's
No.
current, what is the current liquor?
They said they would plan to do until 10 p.m.
They said
I
10.
understand they
Yeah, so it
said
says-
till, but can they till two?
Depends on the,
I believe, is that the code, chief, that, or-
I believe so too.
oh, thank you.
So,
Walter.
and could they have a live band in the backyard? I'm only
Well,
asking
you-
because I've had questions from residents down there.
You are correct that they would still be, they would still have to abide by the noise ordinance. in
Yeah,
regards to
they're
that.
gonna be-
Alright, cool. Yeah,
They have to
and,
allow-
and they would have to apply, correct, for a special permit for a band, et cetera.
I don't think they have to do that unless we have some setting an ordinance, and I don't think we do. That
So-
says, that's not a special event, they can invite a musician into their business
They could.
Until,
until 10 a.m., until 10 p.m., because that's the noise ordinance, that's when the noise
So
ordinance
10,
shuts.
not,
Everything
not
shuts down,
two.
no matter what it is, what the event is, at 10 o'clock, the noise ordinance goes into effect, and therefore everything has to stop, that's why the fireworks are always stopped.
But they can still be open till two.
Sure, if they have a liquor
Oh,
license, that
alright.
allows that.
Okay. That would, thank you.
You're welcome.
That would, yeah. That was my question, so, all right, cool.
No, I think if people over there are gonna be worried about that, makes sense.
Well, they are,
Yeah,
and I've heard about it,
yeah, of
so
course.
that,
But I think that, yeah, those
Alright.
guys have it under
Alright.
control.
cool. Awesome.
We also have Attorney Bury with us in case you have any legal questions. Or any questions, any additional questions about the security plan, happy to take those. As I mentioned, we do have the draft calendar, we're kind of fine tuning that yet. And we are proposing that the ordinance come, the second reading of the ordinance come before you next Monday. So if you do have any comments or questions, please let me know, and yeah, absolutely.
You're gonna have smoking areas,
I apologize, what's that?
smoking areas, where you
Um,
can smoke at, or you're just gonna let people just walk all over?
Well, I think anywhere
Smoking
from
or-
50 feet from any door is
I
legal.
believe that, yeah,
It's
it's
still not
it was-
Boulder, John, come on, we're still not Boulder. Yeah,
it would still be the standard state regulation on that in regards to the entrance to the
50 feet,
property.
yes.
Oh, I apologize, I'm not great with that knowledge.
I think
it
it's
is-
15 to 19, it depends on where you are. I
I
think
remember
Denver's
if it was
19 now.
25 or 50. Yeah. So
I would
25.
like to see it, if that is, if we are gonna have smoking stations.
We talked
Whatever.
about an ordinance last year that would regulate that, and we didn't end up passing it in the city.
I know, I
Correct.
agree with it, by the way, just so you know. But I do think that you should have places where if you are gonna have a smoking station, that we do have the best receptacles that we possibly can have. Those that, you know, snuff out the cigarette, goes into the big thing. To discourage that. I don't want to slap anybody.
So out of the three scenarios that you're bringing forth, the restaurants, I think, do a pretty good job at controlling their little areas with signage. That helps too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Special events, if we limit it to a certain area, I think that's usually done with the help of police department.
Well,
And
I
signage.
agree with
smokers
that.
will regulate themselves. If it's just that you're allowed to walk up and down the road, that's when you think that behavior happens. If you're standing in front of your peers and you're throwing stuff on the ground, somebody's gonna be pissed off and say something, because it just makes everybody look bad when you do that.
Well, you yourself probably feel bad for doing that on your own.
One would hope.
Yeah,
But on the third scenario, that's where I would think I would have some concerns because it's such a broad area.
Mhm.
Nobody's like taking ownership of little areas as much. And I don't know if signage, maybe the police chief could weigh in on this, but do you see a problem of keeping alcohol within those areas, even with added security officers? And I mean, it's such a big area. I could view people walking outside those areas and not knowing that they're even
outside the area.
outside the area.
I think that signage is gonna be critical for that. It's also, this is a one event thing, so it gives us an opportunity to, that's an event where in the past, last year, we had 6 rangers here for 4th of July for the evening portion of the event. And we had 6 here during the day, just because we had a lot of people here. So, we do add that level. So I would say that it could be problematic if the controls aren't in place, meaning the controls that are sort of in and out of that, and it's a big place to control. So my bigger concern is probably just into the parking lot. We kind of saw that even last year with some folks that had alcohol in parking lots. So that's probably a concern. I think it's a valid concern. But I also would say that we didn't have any spike in problems, meaning we didn't have anyone get run over, we didn't have any, disturbances or fights or anything that would sort of mean that things were out of control, I guess is what I would say. So I understand the concern. I think it is a valid concern. And I think maybe as a city and as a business community, we can work and maybe plan on how we can better control or have control over that. So, and I'm open to that. I'm open to ideas, and there's been some really good ideas that have been brought up in our previous meetings. So that's my take on that. And that is a one big event, but we do have a lot of extra folks in town as far as law enforcement goes. So, Jonathan, I have some.
Mayor, I just want to say that Sadie might be able to speak to some of the business plans for how this would be handled and managed. ISMA is very involved in helping to program and make sure the marketplace is what it needs to be during the summertime. And Sadie's taking a key role in making sure that happens. I thought that might be good to hear your opinion both about smoking and just about controlling those liquor barriers potentially.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, thank you guys for letting me come and talk about what we're doing. To note one question that every liquor license on minor is currently in agreement with the CODA. We don't have any liquor licenses within the district that are adverse to the CODA being put in place. Everyone is also very aware that they have the opportunity on nights where they don't feel comfortable, that they don't have to allow liquor out of their area, and they're very aware of that choice for themselves. When it comes to 4th of July, the business owners are extraordinarily, because it's their liquor licenses that are sponsoring the CODA, the business owners and the liquor license holders are extraordinarily engaged in creating really tight and really detailed security plans. They want this to be successful, as the Minor Street Marketplace is very successful for their businesses. They're really willing to work in partnership to make sure that the block by block goes well as the 4th of July proposed event, that they want to offer that as much security and as much detail and creativity as we can. They all agree this is a big switch for our community. And, we have gone from just allowing liquor in the park on 4th of July to suggesting. Most of the business and liquor license holders are really excited for that opportunity, because sometimes on 4th of July, they end up dying out when everybody is focused in the park and buying beer and food in the park from outside vendors, whereas not purchasing and establishing things from their businesses. So they are very much taking ownership of this opportunity that council could give to them. When it comes to the smoking on minor, when that ordinance went before last year, the business owners were extraordinarily invested in wanting to create designated smoking areas on minor, asking them to be beautified and kind of maybe create a park bench with a cute little thing, and having an opportunity on minor to have some spaces that are not activated currently by the business that it's in front of, having the consent of that business to say have a little patio designated smoking area that would then have a receptacle in that area. All of us know the flowers get used as ashtrays. If we were to create an opportunity zone for them to have a place to sit with a little thing that's a little bit away. There are several businesses, the Euro place, he has mentioned he's comfortable with that being out in front of his place. Chase has mentioned that for West Winds. A few others on the block are open to having those spaces in front of their business. So those are the two things that you guys have currently talked about. Businesses are very interested in participating.
Why don't we, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No, go ahead, you go ahead.
Why don't we make everybody that's kind of got that out front make like a trash receptacle and a smoke receptacle, like part of their business with outdoor seating or whatever.
Most of the businesses do not allow smoking on their patios on
Well,
minor. So, and I do know several of them. I don't know, Tommy Knockers, if you guys did last year, but Mountain Prime last year did eventually. end up putting a receptacle right near their patio station.
Right, but this is still America, and most businesses who don't allow something on public street isn't,
Oh, yeah, no, I was just saying on their patios themselves personally.
they don't own the patio probably.
But I think it's
City
probably a
does.
good idea to have one each block because
Is it-
smokers aren't
Exactly.
notoriously the
That-
healthiest
that's all I'm
creatures of the
saying.
planet.
Yeah,
Walking far. is
Yeah,
probably not.
I don't really think it's up to them on this city property to whether allow or not allow that to be had. I think it's more for the people that it, more of a convenience. Yeah, sorry, it might be in front of your business and that just sucks, but sorry.
no, yeah, I understand what you're saying for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think if you have a frequency of receptacles, I think most smokers would be respectful and use those rather
That-
than using a.
That's what
flower
I'm saying,
pot.
Scott. Yes, correct. I mean, everybody kind of agree on that?
I think that would be a good thing.
Sure. Lisa, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. This is more for Sadie. Have, the businesses, when we're talking about the block by block, have the businesses talked about doing outdoor serving areas? Like, you know, I've lived in a lot of places that had this kind of walkability with your alcohol, and they had outdoor, like an outdoor bar or a separate place so that you didn't have to go in and disturb the people who were dining. There's a place you could walk up, get your beverage and move along.
Yes, several of the businesses have started to talk about that as a part of their incorporated encroachment agreements, as well as we have a couple other businesses that don't have, say, a dining area such as the Sleigh Makers, who would maybe have something outside available on certain nights if they're cornholes in their block.
Well, I'm thinking about that, you know, where you're talking about the businesses that have not been able to participate, maybe because we have outdoor vendors, say 4th of July. This is one way to make it convenient for folks, just like the smokers receptacles. If you're walking by and there's an outdoor bar, you stop, you get your beverage and on you go.
Sadie and I have another item in this work session to discuss minor street operations, and I think that might be pertinent to that conversation.
I also like the idea, and maybe I might be the only one in this. I like the idea for these special events where we're doing a block by block where people can wander with a cup and a sticker. Because I do think Chief is right that patrolling those areas and saying, here, drop your drink, you can't take it with you. Like, that's gonna be really difficult, and then we'll have people spreading out to wherever they parked with drink in hand. You know, that's problematic. It's also a liability issue.
the point is that the 4th of July is an opportunity. You know, we're still kind of one of those things is, does this work for us as a long-term thing for our system? And so the 4th of July gives us an opportunity to test and see if we can operate safely. As Chief said, we'll have the extra police officers here to see if that would work on that day. But we're only committing to that for this year. The whole calendar will be set. And so basically what it will be, the way I have been thinking about it is like when I go to the concert, when the concert is happening, I can have a beer at the concert. When cornhole is happening, and it will only be in one block at a time, it's not going to be all 3 blocks. I can drink while I play cornhole. And that's only during the tournament. So, you know, we have the boards out there during the day too, but that's a more informal use, which isn't associated. So I do think that there are some challenges, but I think one of the things that it's important to remember is that we have spent probably a good 3.5 months talking about this at this point, and they have had conversations with the business community. Everybody's invested in this. One example, Tommy Knockers has a
Oh, no, I don't
production
doubt the
license.
investment at all.
Yeah, and that's what I'm just saying is there's a lot at stake here to make sure this goes properly on everyone's piece. And I think that one of the things that Idaho Springs does really well is to innovate in ways that are not necessarily reinventing the wheel, like just applying things in a slightly different way. And I think this is an opportunity for us to do that. And I think one of the things we can do, you know, the barricades that we have, we may need to think about how we barricade off blocks differently in the future, but we have these barricades that go at each end of the block. And we have several points where we can put signage that would be appropriate to show people leave the coda. One thing that, you know, I heard somebody say this today, but we have people get parking tickets in our town every single day. We have some people who get parking ticket every single day. Like, you know, that's just something that happens. People will break rules and that's going to happen. And what we have to do is build a system that tries to make sure that we don't inadvertently, like you say, cause somebody to break a rule that could be bad. And I think we probably have a system here that could handle what we're talking about. But of course, it's always something that we need to tweak and make sure that we're thinking about as responsibly as possible, especially you as council making this decision. So.
And this conversation might go into the minor part, but the cornhole one, while it does rotate per block, it also has a cornhole manager. There is a person on site that is responsible for running the cornhole tournament. He's there, he is very on board with this, and it's Mike, yeah. It's Michael Hill,
My
neighbor. He's your neighbor, he loves cornhole, if you don't know, he really loves it. So he is, and the cornhole culture, they are used to having their beverage in hand while they throw bags, that's part of the culture. And that was his main, there was a lot of accidental rule breaking last year, because last year you were not allowed to leave barrier areas, and then they're walking with their beer into the middle of the street while they're throwing bags and they're breaking the rules. This is a way to allow the cornhole to happen without them to breaking rules. And Mike is very invested in this being a success. He will be there on every block, every night, making sure that he's participating and making sure the signs are in place. And then on the music nights, again, the restaurants that are co-sponsoring those musics are also very invested in it being a successful concert night. So those are.
And we,
So my question is that, let's say, you know, you don't want to get some from one of the bars or whatever on Minor, like westbound and down or whatever. But I want to buy some from Asa in Mason at the Moose. Are you allowed to come up on the Minor with?
So Austin Mason would be included in the block with Bojo's when cornhole happens on their block.
But only that time.
Only that time,
Okay.
yeah.
So
And so you can't take something from one business to it
gotcha.
into the other.
But how are we gonna let everybody know that that's okay that particular night or on a concert evening or whatever?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the business owners are really talking with their staff. This is gonna be an education process.
It's
This
just
is
like personal, you
Yeah,
know,
this is
like,
engagement with our visitors.
all right,
That, and we also propose having additional signage because, you know, of course, under normal operating hours, the city probably won't have signage at the end of the blocks because it's all confined within people's
of
areas.
course,
And those are roped off, et cetera.
sure.
But we do intend to have some special signage that comes out for those events, you know, event night. And we haven't got the terminology down yet, but
Right.
something effective, you know, no alcohol beyond this point.
Does Breck do anything like this so we could emulate what their verbiage is up there, like when they do the Oiler Fest or things like that?
That's a good question. We may be able to,
I'm not comparing us to Breck.
Yes, you are.
I'm asking if Breck is doing something that we can copy.
Arvada is.
Okay, let's
And
just
also-
go with Arvada. Like they're not Breck.
so the code of regulation is fairly new. There aren't a lot of other places doing codas. There are a lot of other places that do, other things that are legislated. So, this is, we were looking for an example. They're a little tough to find right now. So, this could be a good first one. But also, yeah, there's definitely plenty of examples of, no alcohol beyond this line. So,
Yeah, yeah, so it's not uncommon, Jared, that, on and off, depending on the weekend or event or whatever, that we do and don't do that.
I'm sorry.
It's only for it's only for the events. It's not a normal, it's not every day of
Correct.
the
The
week.
normal everyday would look almost identical to what you saw last time, with maybe a few little exceptions to people's areas.
All right.
I for one missed the eighties.
Can I say something else too? And I understand you're talking about the confusion of blocks,
Yeah.
but for me, my perspective is this is a way for the city to try, this is in small and deal with a few people that don't follow the rules. The signage will be a lot less intense because we only have to worry about the end of each block.
Mhm.
If we open it up to 3 blocks,
Yeah.
and the signage is, we're gonna have to really put an investment into signage. And I don't know if we're quite there yet. And even as we try this block by block, I realize, again, there'll be some confusion. We'll count on businesses to really try to educate their people as they're handing them the drinks at the table. Hey, this can't leave this block, otherwise the police might hassle you, right? So it gives us an opportunity to try this. And then 4th of July is really the big try, one day, where we're really gonna need to be a little more organized, have a lot more signage, we'll have a lot more people, a lot more manpower for that specific event. And so, go ahead.
No, sorry, Nate.
That's okay.
Well, I see that, we got some big players in the audience of that, where I think honestly, they respect what you just said and the rules. I mean, Mary Jane, Kent, Steve, these are big players downtown. So I think they understand too that, when that's opened up, that they want to push and tell their patrons, understand, like, here's the deal,
Right. Right, and that's why if we just sort of open it up, if council recommends we opening it up now, I feel like we're kind of jumping the gun a little bit. My concern would be, we have a lot of people carrying alcohol out into the parking lots. We have people carrying alcohol up onto Colorado where they parked. So
right.
that's, I don't want that. I don't think the community wants that. So I think this is a better way to at least start. And that's why we're sort of in line, I would say all in alignment as staff. And I feel like in fairly good alignment with what the business owners, I do understand the confusion part.
Yeah.
So I realize that could become an issue, but I think Jonathan also explains it fairly well about the little events, that's where that alcohol is allowed. So,
But I do think if these guys are the big players in the, in the foundation of that they can kind of police almost themselves. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Steve, right?
Yeah.
Where you guys know, I mean, here's the rules, and when you're playing that with your customers.
One thing we're doing that we can talk about for our enclosed Coda nights, we're serving in glass.
Yeah.
And on our
Perfect.
expanded Coda nights, we'll be encouraging people to take plastic out in the street. That should, everybody knows you shouldn't walk away with glass, I don't think. It's not gonna work for everybody, but that's one small thing we're doing to communicate.
Sure. And Kent, you're probably the same way, Mary Jane, same, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
and we started really wanting the entire 3-block entertainment district. A bunch of us did, but through lots of conversations, we backed off into this model for this year.
Well,
Believe me, we all kind of let's go for it. And then-
I
Right.
think that was,
but I still think that aside from everything, you're putting first that what you're doing is more of a privilege. And you don't want me and his crew to, you know, have to enforce the decisions on you guys, right?
Is Carmen still on, John?
Chief,
Oh, yeah.
I have a question for you, you know, for the event of July 4th. Would it not be maybe, if it's feasible, appropriate to cut off the traffic going across Minor from each intersection? Like right now, we've got each block blocked off and then they can cross, the cars can go across.
It's only eastbound though,
On
Art.
the event
How are you
night.
gonna do that?
Pardon? On the event night day, I thought maybe
One big loop around
stop the
downtown.
traffic from crossing those streets because people are gonna be walking more freely. Being they have all those street blocks to walk.
Well,
And
there
I
won't
mean,
be,
it's the number of people.
well, there won't be any eastbound traffic though, right? Am I correct?
He's talking
I'm
about
not
cross
talking about
streets.
Minor,
Cross
I'm
streets.
talking about
Oh, that's north-south round,
Yeah.
about, okay, I'm sorry.
just a thought.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's feasible.
It's certainly something to consider, but it could obviously cause other things unintentionally. And I also know we want to be careful with businesses, so depending on where if you close that off at Colorado, then there could be some access issues. So we have to really take a real hard look as to whether
Yeah.
what's feasible or not.
It's
I
just-
understand what you're saying, just because to avoid a pedestrian vehicle,
And there's so many more people on that
There
particular
are.
day.
Yeah,
there are.
So I know that liability is probably on the minds of business owners as well as the city. I think the way you limit your liability is if there is a violation or something that's not acceptable, that's brought in front of us as a group, that we know how to deal with it. Because when you ignore those events, that's when you can become liable. So I think that we need to make sure that
Good question.
anything that
Good question,
happens
yeah.
is brought forth and brought out in the open, and how we can make that better,
between the city and
and the business
the
owners.
businesses, I agree.
Because if you ignore them, that's when you become liable.
Right.
If
So you
something
had some-
happens.
Yeah, what I like about the way that the coda is also currently written in there, it does have the liability portion of the coda that talks about that. And because almost every liquor license holder is very active in the Economic Recovery Task Force meeting, that is something that's an excellent forum for us to talk. It's where where we've come to talk about issues, concerns, creativity, being nimble. Again, this is a big ask. We are asking you guys to change something about how our city has operated for a very long time. And as business owners, the business community is extraordinarily invested in being creative and finding the solutions right away and coming with solutions before we see the problems and also as problems occur. Everybody interacts with each other. This is a new time in our city where almost every business owner on Minor interacts with each other regularly, learning from each other, growing from each other, and holding each other accountable. So that's something that has really changed in our community where we do really have that accountability.
Scott, did you have a question for Carmen?
No, I just wondered if she viewed any other problems with liability, but that's my take on it, is if you ignore things that happened in the past, that's what gets you in trouble in the future.
Right.
I'd forgotten that Mike was, that he ran the cornhole. I'm actually a little more comfortable with that because he was very invested last year in making that a success so that it would become a yearly event.
You're on the Ag District. Cornhole,
Who?
Mike.
Oh, yeah, he's
Yeah,
gun ho.
yeah. big
Very.
time. Super cool.
Jared, did you have anything else?
That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any more questions now or between now and, next week when we're proposing to have the second reading of the ordinance before you.
All right, oh, anything more?
You got an emergency service plan? Do we have an emergency service plan for this?
The streetscape, when we operate it, is set up so the encroachments onto the street allow for a fire truck to get down the lane. That's one of the reasons why we're pretty stringent about anybody blocking the avenues. Like sometimes it happens in the summer, people try to park there. And we shut that down pretty quick because that's our emergency service operations kind of venue or place. Last couple of years for the Economic Recovery Task Force, Chief Babion has come to talk about that with the group, and we probably should schedule that sometime in the near future, just to make sure everybody's on the same page.
All eastbound though, yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Chief. Yeah, and so, basically, I'll reiterate kind of what Jonathan said, we just make sure that we can access the areas as need be, and certainly when we do our 4th of July plan, when I have these other entities coming into our city to help. In fact, last year, the sheriff's department did provide a deputy as well, so I always have an emergency plan that I put together, services plan for large scale events, so for 4th of July, and then all for, and including some of the special events that we hold, like the borough races and other things where we have a lot of moving parts and things that could go wrong. So we're prepared to deal with those things. So we have plans for all those special events, but certainly the Tuesday, Thursday, Friday events, I can look at putting together a small plan, but it's really not grandiose crowds like we're talking about for some of the other events.
All right, any,
Right behind you, Mayor.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tamara, and I am new in town at Project Support Senior Center.
Welcome.
I'm not sure right now is the time to ask, but I do need to address handicap parking spaces for the center that are out front, and they will, according to your plan that I think I received it from you, or maybe not, I don't know, that they will be blocked off. So I do need to address that. I don't know when I do that.
That's kind of the mayor had said.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely set aside some time to talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Jared, any more questions for Jared? All right, well, we will move on to downtown marketplace update. Sadie, aren't you glad you're with us tonight?
I'm always so happy to be in front of you guys. And actually, first time in front of some of you guys in the council setting. So again, thank you so much for having me. I wanted to provide a little bit of an update since the last time I was in front of some of you before and now. You guys have become familiar with the term ISMA, which is the Idaho Springs Marketing Alliance. This is a group that literally formed out of the Economic Recovery Task Force. When we, coming out of COVID, we really realized that we needed to bind together as business owners and look at a way to work together and be more nimble when it comes to marketing and planning things within our community as business owners to support that effort. So we formed the ISMA. We have now joined forces with the chamber, and the president of the chamber, Amy Miley, is here with me today. And we are now a committee under the Chamber of Commerce. So we are now represented as one organization, and the ISMA will function as a committee under the Chamber of Commerce. So that to say that the two are working together instead of having two business organizations. We're currently executing our MOU, and if you have any questions regarding that, we'd be happy to speak to that as well. But I'm not here for that. I'm here to talk about the Minor Street Market Activation Plan. I came to you last year with something very similar. This is programming for the Minor Street Marketplace from the week of May 9th until Halloween. We kept it open longer last year. We are recommending shortening that period and reopening Minor to one-way traffic again after Halloween, but keeping it closed full-time till Halloween with programmed activation. I would like to request a meeting with Patty and John to review the plan and make sure that the city staff has everything it needs regarding the activation plan, and that if there's anything in the plan that rises to the level of needing more information than's already being provided to staff. We also want to work with the city to make sure that there are any other events that are happening within the minor district, i.e. borough races or the half marathon, where the minor street market might need to be nimble or more act to support the other events that are going to be in the community. You guys have a small summary in front of you of the activation plan on Minor. The first activation would be the graduation parade. The school district is extraordinarily excited that we are going to be able to do this again this year. Everything has been already lined up, ready to go. We have all of our permissions in place. Summer kickoff would be the opening weekend of the market, and that would be June 3rd through 5th. Nothing extraordinarily big planned for that weekend, just mainly our first kids day. So we are proposing having a kids family day once a month on Minor. This would be either a Saturday or Sunday. This would be resident driven. This would be really attracting to our residents. Carlson, the PTA, a lot of our community partners have expressed interest in sponsoring and participating in this one day a month, as well as offering small things like burro rides on Minor to uplift our history, as well as some other fun events, face painting. The Clear Creek Tourism has offered again. Last year we had these cute baskets that had sidewalk chalk and bubbles. And you guys, your kids were drawing all over Minor on sidewalk chalk. It's adorable. So there'll be those out again. Having some more chalk artists be able to be enticed to come up. If you ever guys have seen the chalk art. We have a couple of chalk artists that have approached us in the past about being able to come off and block off a spot on Minor where they could do a period piece in chalk. They perform all day. They have a little bucket out for tips. And then by the end of the day, it would be a beautiful piece of chalk art on Minor. That would be happening on the kids' night or the kids' day. The Pedicabs Mountain Youth Network are returning, would like to return to Minor. John and I have spoken about a safety plan as well as approved driving routes. Taking feedback from last year. Again, we're trying to learn and grow. We listen to all the community feedback. We listen to city council's feedback, the economic recovery task force, and we're trying to be nimble again and approach where we've had some issues. We've had a few issues with the pedicabs in the past couple of years. So we're going to try to be a little bit more coordinated this year. Sponsored street picture opportunities. Last year, the Argo put a beautiful gold ore cart out on Minor, and there was so many people putting their kids up on it, taking pictures, posting it up on Instagram. We have the city.
The old jail from the old days of Idaho Springs still exists, and it would be cool to find a place for it on Minor Street, because that's kind of where it belongs. So we've talked about bringing that back too, potentially.
And we'll bring an Argo cart.
Yeah, and then that's just an opportunity for the visitors to take pictures. Then we come to the music on Minor. Again, the music on Minor is chosen on Tuesdays and Thursdays nights for our residents. If you haven't come to Tuesday or Thursday music night on Minor, it is almost all locals. It's not visitors generally. I mean, they happen to find it, but most of the time you'll find your neighbors there, your service staff there. It becomes the local gathering place where our locals can come down to Minor and have a really good time on off-peak times. We don't need to do anything generally on Saturdays and Sundays. We're packed to the brim. We did move cornhole to Friday nights with Mike's request.
It was Monday last year, wasn't
It was Monday last year. Friday this year is the request. There's a couple reasons for that. There was attraction to our cornhole tournament last year. They caught some of the attention of the folks in Denver, and they had expressed the wanting of it to be on a weekend night so they could bring their families up and enjoy more of what Idaho Springs has to offer by having it on a weekend night. Mike, as I spoke about in the coda, is really invested in this.
He told me he would drive away in his RV and just play cornhole for the rest of his life.
That's pretty invested. I can totally see that happening. He talks to me regularly. He offered, he said he would come and talk to you guys if you guys had concerns about it. He wants to take complete responsibility. He wants this to be a success. He will make sure that the signs are posted. Also, the cornhole players, when they sign in their Scoreholio app, they're signing a waiver. Also, that says that they will abide by the rules of the cornhole tournament, which include not leaving the cornhole designated area with their alcoholic beverage. So he put that in the waiver, just so you know. He wants to do a special tournament this year, a one-day big cornhole event. We have decided that it is going to best be suited on the ball fields. It had originally been talked about being on Minor, but he has partnered with the rec center, and that will be a special event.
We may still have opportunities downtown though for that day.
Exactly. That day having specials on Minor and those kind of things. I spoke a little bit briefly about the Kids Day in Idaho Springs. The Chamber of Commerce has in the past done Saturdays in the park one day a month. This would kind of be for that, except for kid focused. It'd be an opportunity for our community partners such as Charlie's Place, the library, the rec, all those things to come down to Minor on a Saturday or a Sunday and offer fun things for kids in the community. So there's lots of really fun things. The possible rail jam, which is fundraisers for the skate park. They have asked multiple times if they would be able to replicate. They did it at Trunk or Treat last year on Minor. If you didn't see it, it was really cool. They put up a little tiny mini skate parks and little skate things. They were hoping to be able to offer that a couple of times during the summer season to raise funds for the skate park, as well as to raise awareness on that we're making progress towards that effort. Burro rides on Minor. So these would be just on one block of Minor. Steve from Tommyknockers has generously volunteered his burros in partnership with the Mountain Youth Network to use it as a fundraiser. It's also a great opportunity for these kids to engage with other younger generations. Bill, Minor Bill, he also will want to partner. We're kind of going on how he feels and what his level of willingness. He says he wants to come down and dress like Minor Bill and walk his burro around town and all of that stuff. We're just kind of waiting to see how he feels before we make super commitments about him. But Steve has offered the burros to come down to do the rides. They've done it for fundraisers for many other things. That's very successful. We can partner with Mountain Youth Network. Really great opportunity for them to continue to raise funds for their program. Talked about 4th of July a lot already. It would be similar to last year, except for the one exception of no food or beer vendor in the park. So we would be relying on, if you approve the CODA to allow that one day, we would be suggesting that the patrons for 4th of July could then patronize the businesses on Minor and walk freely with their food and beverage.
Is it possible for any of the businesses, I know that this could get congested inside a restaurant if they want to just go in and come back out. Would it be possible for any of the businesses just to have like a 1 or 2 taps outside with a 1 or 2, I know Tommyknockers would do it. Ken, you probably would do it, but I think it would just take out some of the congestion inside and that confusion of going back and forth and any conflict that would.
Definitely, I will bring that to the, yeah, the CODA does allow it.
What kind of a to-go window, yeah, I mean, it's just the same, as long as they can pay for it right there, or start a tab right there, that would be great.
So I wanted to bring up something, Sadie, you probably don't know about. The Historical Society is thinking of doing tours in vintage costume.
Yes, it's on my list.
Good, I want to make sure.
Yes. Yes, it's on my list that that would be launching in partnership with the Family Day is when they're hoping to be able to do that. They would like to partner coming on the day once a month, but they also are hoping to expand that offering as they're hoping to find more staff to do it more regularly throughout the season, which would be someone in period gear, walking around Minor, giving tours for donations for the Historical Society.
May I ask a question? With the 4th of July, I know you don't want outside vendors, and I totally agree with that. What about people who are business owners within the town, maybe not within the downtown area? Because I know there are some businesses that do not exist in the downtown area that have been in the park.
This is an important question we wanted to ask council. We have the support of the business community to do vendors downtown. It's got a precedent. We've done it in the past for Dynamite Days when that was happening. But one of the questions has always been competitive businesses and like putting, like by like. But what we have done, and Sadie can speak to this more, but there's been a conversation about what that means and how we can promote more of our local businesses in our downtown space, which we have the capacity to do. I think that the general consensus, and you can change me if I'm wrong, is that if we don't create direct competition between one business and another, for instance, like, if I don't.
Get a steak truck right outside of Mountain Prairie.
Right, we're not gonna have a huge drawback and people are willing to do that. And I think it would promote some businesses in Idaho Springs that from an equity standpoint, don't have access to the crowds that come to Minor Street per se. And I think there's nothing wrong with any part of our town. It's all beautiful. Every region has its own, but every area has its own special parts. But it would allow us to come together in kind of the heart of our community and promote everyone on that.
I would really be supportive of it, because I know I've been down there when there are businesses that are not downtown, but are selling food. And I think, that gives them an exposure they wouldn't normally get.
It's definitely something we, again, later in my presentation, might talk about.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, but for 4th of July specifically, we've had lots of other opportunities, most of the time, and this has been several of the off Minor restaurants specific, have said they can't do it right now because they don't have the staff.
Okay.
So like Brian from Big B's. I've offered him multiple times to come down and do his ices and sell his sweet treats and stuff like that. Been super successful in the park with him before. He just doesn't have the staff or capacity to do it. So he said no every time. So the offer has been there for them. And I definitely think, especially on events like 4th of July, diversity is important and making sure everyone has an opportunity to that. And they will all be asked. Hopefully some of them have got more staffing than they did last year. So again, similar in 4th of July when it comes to activation, we will be partnering again with the rec center. That was a successful partnership last year. Thank you guys for helping support that. We partnered with the rec center last year to offer shuttle and parking. So people were allowed to park in farther distances, and we had a shuttle service run by the rec center that helped rotate and spread out the crowd. It was extraordinarily packed on 4th of July last year, probably the busiest 4th of July I've seen here in the 6 years that I've been on minor. And I mean, this year will be 100% dependent on how busy we all will be to be if we have fireworks or not. If we choose, if the fire chief allows us to have fireworks, we will be the only community in the mountain region to have fireworks.
Oh, wow.
So we prepared for that last year.
Reserve a space for $50.
It was intense last year, and we were busy from the time we opened till they were escorting people off of minor.
We do have ideas to handle it. Like, we could do the shuttles again. That's something we can talk to the rec center about. And
They've already.
yeah, right. So we just need to just prepare for the eventuality that, and it always is busy. We're known as a place that has great fireworks.
Mhm.
So, and the community is great that day. It's a fun day for everyone. So we just need to think about that a little bit more and see what the fire situation looks like as we kind of move forward here.
Have we ever thought of special event parking in this parking lot?
That is an
Like
option.
$50 a day?
We have the ability to
You
charge
can park
surge
there all
pricing for parking, and it probably is something we need to consider in the downtown lot specifically. But we haven't had that conversation at council yet, and I think there's some intricacies there that we just need to discuss.
What's the
I think
backup
people would
plan
pay
for
it.
no fireworks?
All the same activation, bands, music, all of that will be there. No fireworks. I mean, people come out either way.
I
So
know,
we have a month.
have we looked at any of the light shows that can reflect off the mountainside? I know we talked about this a long time ago and it was
There
really
was-
not.
One that was an abject
did that.
failure in town.
Yeah, we
There-
did it.
Andy and I just talked to
Did it.
somebody who does
Right.
drone shows though, and that could potentially be something in the future. But we're in the contract right now with our fireworks, and our firework company is really responsive and they're really responsible. They won't hold that show if it's dangerous, and they have, like, one really great reason I like them is during COVID, we didn't know we were gonna have any money. We thought we were gonna be one of the hardest hit economies in the country. They just said, don't worry about it. You'll just do the show when you can pay for it. And so we waited and they did it later. So they saved us maybe $20,000 that year.
Cool.
I think that it's something that we need to continue talking about in the county, with our situation, but,
Yeah, I mean, just in general
Yeah.
for the future, I don't see that as a sustainable
Yeah.
sort of entertainment, just.
one benefit of having Andy, fire chief on staff.
She's gonna run up that hill.
Good.
I was at my house when that started on fire, and I'm sure Mary Jane remembers this too, was like, oh boy, this is it, this is the end.
Yeah.
I might add under the contract, if we cannot hold it on 4th of July, it's the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I remember that, that's
Assuming we
great,
can have
yeah.
it then as well.
And
Yeah,
that's been a successful, the years where we have done that as a small business Saturday activation, that's been a beautiful
Yeah.
Christmas, delightful. We've gotten feedback from the community. They would actually prefer it than to 4th of July, because then it's more community oriented and less tourism oriented. So
plus it's such a cool thing to do in the wintertime, and it can start earlier and all kinds of
it
stuff.
snowed. It was,
Oh, nice,
no, it was beautiful. It was snowing and there were fireworks.
that's
I mean,
wonderful.
anyway.
Trucks get scared because they don't know there's gonna be fireworks right over the highway.
Okay, that's not good.
So then kind of our quote unquote official things, 4th of July will be the last big quote unquote thing happening on minor. The continued activation will go through. John and I have worked to make sure that the 9/11's Heroes Parade will happen on minor this year. That will be included in the activation plan. Anything that impacts the minor district during the activation period, we would like to have on the plan. That way we don't come across any problems like we had last year where there was miscommunications and things were not included, and then we were too short on time to really make any good effort to fix it. So we've really worked hard to make sure we've talked to every single possible person that we can that has something, wants to use something on minor. And obviously we know this can't be 100% all encompassing, like the Haley Washington thing happened last year and that, threw a massive bee in my bonnet, but we figured it out and made it happen. And that was a great event. So I'm not saying it's going to be everything, but I'm tried to make sure it includes everything.
Are you guys working with the borough races this year?
So the borough races is a special event. They require a full special event permit. We're aware of the activation and how it will impact minor.
It's a really good point. I just wanted to bring this up basically with what Sadie said, what you just asked. So in the city, we have always handled anything like this, programming things like this as a special event. And a special event is regulated by our municipal code and requires 60 days notice to get an application in. And there's a lot of reasons for that because it takes a lot of staff time. We have great clerk staff and they do a really good job of making sure that we get stuff across the finish line. There's some stuff that has to go to the state at exactly 30 days. So hand-holding is the wrong word to use, but there is a certain amount of making sure that people getting them through the process on a crosswalk that makes sense for people. Those bumper lanes for bowling or whatever. So that's one of the things that we've done with special events in the past. That's a really important process because it gives staff every piece of information they need to hold an event safely. It gives Chief Busick a chance to weigh in on the event and say, oh, I need 5 police officers for that, or you're gonna have to pay for this additional service or whatever. But we can go through all those processes. It was really critical during COVID because literally no one knew what was happening at any given moment. And we didn't know if we could do things or not do things. It was just challenging. It's changing a little bit. And one thing that we have realized with the marketplace is it's not really a special event. We're programming a space that's owned and operated by the city, and we partner with the ISMA and the chamber. We have worked really hard at that. I'm on the chamber as well. And we worked really hard at the chamber and the ISMA to build an organization that can give the city additional capacity for community promotion. One of the things we're focusing on really strongly is, everybody says shop local. It's one of the things everybody knows about a chamber. We're trying to twist that on an ear because it's not just shop local here. It's shop local and tourism, and they're mixed together. And we need to turn that around and make it so that our businesses, which do support our whole community, have, we target those both communities and both sides of that community. It's a Jekyll Hyde kind of situation, but not a negative way for us. So we worked really hard to do that. One thing that I think will really help, and this is something that from a staff perspective, I think this is a good idea for council to consider, and we felt we need a little bit of direction on, is we would like to allow the ISMA, when they send in this plan in the chamber, which is the plan of the events for the summer, to be able to do that in batch so that they don't have to fill out the application for every single piece of the event that happens. Most of this stuff is replicated through the summer. For instance, the summer bands, we handled that last summer in a very similar fashion. And what it allows is for Sadie to focus on the important information, get us the insurance, all those things that we need in a format that Patty and Wonder can sign off on, in good conscience, knowing that they're representing the city properly. And so we've been talking about this is, these are kind of special event adjacent, and there's pieces of them that rise to the level of a special event, but it's not all a special event. And so we're thinking if we create a batch application, and that's why Sadie was asking, could we meet with Patty and myself and Wonder to put together, make sure that everything is there that we need for the event. And then as we go through the summer, it becomes easier for us to perpetuate those events and build what works and doesn't work. And she can still provide all the same information, but it just, from a administrative perspective, it's a lot easier to handle for everyone. But, one of the things I really want to say is for instance, Wonder last summer, she did Herculean effort, getting things across the finish line. She deserves massive kudos for the work she did because it was almost impossible with the way we had to do with health guidelines and everything. And it was hard. It's a hard job. And it's one of those things that people get real angry when sometimes your hands are tied and you're the person who has to take it. And Wonder did that and she did great. I think this is going to be something we can do to take a little bit of that burden away, but still make her able to do her job the way it needs to be done. And so that's why we're presenting this plan, just to try to get that so that our community can have these events, which we know are successful. We know our sales tax has been up since COVID, primarily because of the marketplace. And it does it in a way that encourages our, it's the home and heart of our community. And that's what we want Minor Street to be. And that's why we've done so much work to build events that are family centered and still provide opportunities for visitors to our community to come and be I don't want to say they're controlled when they're here, but we keep the impacts off residential areas, make sure they're being where they need to be and they're having a great time while they're here and they're enjoying our history and us while they're here. So that's kind of the intention here.
Yeah, so to speak to that, Wonder and I, we we jumped through lots of hoops last year to try to make sure that Wonder was upholding the city's municipal code and I was still being able to do what was asked of me, you know, and so this batching process where I can present to you guys an activation plan of what is intended for the marketplace, all in one big, can be replicated and used in the city and other opportunities as well. There are other, you know, there are other organizations that could benefit from being able to batch all of their seasons events into one process versus having to do one for every single one. So 4th of July will have a whole packet included with it, so that Chief Buzak has a whole plan. Like he said, there'll be lots of detail that go into that, especially if you approve the CODA and allow us to have open carry that whole time. There will be a very large packet and plan for that. That would be the only real thing so far that's firm on this that would be rise to that level. Everything else would be kind of hopefully being able to batch together with John and Pat. Talked about the Heroes Parade on Minor. The only thing that's classified as severely potential right now is a fall festival, and not to say like Dynamite Days, very different than Dynamite Days, but a fall festival, figuring out some activation at Water Wheel Park, some other things of that nature. This might get tabled to next year. It's really going to kind of depend on the business's capacity and funding. Pumpkin decorations on Minor, we did that last year. We actually made it all the way through the season without one pumpkin being smashed. They were smashed on the last day, which is understandable. So really we ended up, that was Public Works' main concern, was people smashing pumpkins on Minor. It didn't happen until Halloween night. Other than that, we made it all the way through the whole season with pretty pumpkins decorating our Minor street. This has been suggested by our community. Our community loves Halloween. They are extraordinarily good at Halloween. The community has suggested a city partnership to do a fall decorating contest, to have the residents voting on best house and those kind of things, and then having a prize package of Minor Street would offer a prize package for that.
I think it's a great idea.
I love that
And
idea.
it would rock and roll in this town.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we
We
can
are
also
definitely known
do,
for Halloween.
we can also do nomination forms that if, you know, we have a lot of residents that do not use social media or do not use their phones. I don't blame them. I'd like to join. We could use old school nomination forms where you could turn them in at participating locations.
Library,
And then
definitely
people could nominate said house on Minor or said house on Colorado Boulevard or High Street or whatever. Great job. I mean,
I think that honestly, Sadie, that really starts to happen and the zombie crawl happens.
Yeah.
I've always thought we should do a cemetery crawl. You know, I've probably said this to you at least 10 times, but I
Yeah,
mean,
the
we
cemetery
really could
Yeah.
be on the map for just Halloween.
Yeah, we
alone
really-
and
we really-
forget all, I mean, of course, include all the other things, but we
Yeah.
have the best town for Halloween.
Halloween is my favorite holiday,
Yes.
so I go a little
Me too.
crazy.
We also hit it out of the park on a trick or treat.
Yeah, so Trunk or Treat last year was a huge success. It will be just as big, if not bigger and better. Last year, we had community partners on Minor. Chief was extraordinarily helpful on getting a lot of EMS and all of our service workers get out there. The roundabout did a haunted bus. It was so cool. Tommy knockers did their tents on Minor and turned it into a haunted house. So it changed the Carlson traditional Halloween parade that they do. It turned that into Trunk or Treat. So it was then not only available for the Carlson kids to come through, it was also then available for the community to come and participate for a little while. That would be our last event on Minor, with the zombie crawl, hopefully being, we have several businesses that have been approached about wanting the ability to do zombie crawl. I've asked Charlie's Place if they would be interested in partnering with their dog costume contest, and we could kind of do a tie-in together to benefit a community partner. Again, all the businesses on Minor understand that we get a lot of bonus having this street closed, and we're so gracious to City Council for offering us this opportunity. we want to make sure that the activation of minor also benefits all of our community partners and that people in the community are benefiting just as much. We'll be throwing rapid drafts again this year to say thank you to the community. Free event, huge success last year, sponsored by the ISMA. We'll be doing it again, saying thank you to the community for everything they put up with in the summer season. So those are just kind of the things. There are two important things that I really want your guys' discussion and feedback on. Last year we had the Wild Bunch on Minor Street. They are a historical reenactment group. They do a gun show on Minor. We got a lot of positive feedback from it. We also did get some negative feedback from it, that the gunshots were loud, that it did startle people. They have approached us again, wanting to activate Minor. I brought it to the city council last year. I will bring it again this year. That is really your guys' decision. It is a hot topic. They come once a month and do a historical reenactment day. They did it in front of the park, in front of Evergreen Bank on that corner. I think it was like 3 shows in a day. We did a security plan with Chief to make sure. I think if we were to do it this year, we would also want to include extra signage and more information happening before they start so that maybe we could prevent anyone from being startled or scared, dogs, those kind of things. The Wild Bunch leadership is extraordinarily good at, they want to communicate with the people around them, making sure people know. We could maybe do better at signage and information, warnings, those kind of things, maybe a loudspeaker announcing it loudly before. Those are the options that we've kind of been brought from the Wild Bunch. The second thing to bringing to city council that I would like your discussion and feedback on is allowing vendors on Minor Street. We have several businesses that have expressed interest in wanting to come down on a weekend or on a specific night to be able to come down to Minor Street to interact with the crowds, especially 4th of July, but also just in general, maybe on the kids' Saturday or Sunday, we also offer it as an opportunity for other vendors to come to Minor. In the past, there's been a lot of expressed concern about competitive businesses on Minor. I have reached out to the Minor Street business community and everybody is very in favor of allowing vendors on Minor as long as, you don't put a steak truck in front of Mountain Pride. Those kind of things. You're not directly like, say, I put a clothing vendor right in front of Margie's place. Like that would not be, it would be non-competitive, local vendors.
So only local.
Only
in county.
local, yeah. The exterior to that is that the community has asked for some kind of farmer's market or something where you could buy fresh and good produce, Colorado local. The fruit and veggie guys that do their Palisade, they're on at the Sasquatch, as well as they are up on 119. They have expressed interest in wanting to be able to come down to Minor Street. They would like to be able to come down one day a week. They would be willing to be here on an off time if you want it to be resident centric to reduce traffic. They are willing to come down on weekends if we want. Then we do have to understand congestion and traffic and those kind
I
of
miss our
things.
farmers market though, like, we used to have that in the park. I shop that all the time.
Yeah, it's one thing I have had a lot of input, all positive,
Yeah.
about if we could have the
We
farmers
as well.
market back.
Yes, sir.
And that would include that style of those type of vendors, Royal Jelly Bakery, being able to have their pickup location be on Minor. They do breads and jams and jellies. Being able to offer some of those vendors, that don't have a storefront. I thought of the sleigh makers, but no, they have a storefront. So before when they were, so those kind of things, we have great businesses and great entrepreneurs in this community. We have a guy that runs a photo bus, it's like a little VW bus and it's a Photoshop or a photo booth. Is that what you call photo booth? Words. Photo booth. He's local to this community. Like how awesome would it be able to offer that, to allow that on Minor? But that's something we would need your guys' approval for because traditionally no outside vendors on minor unless it's a special
And
event.
that was gone, that was a while back, and that was simply because we didn't want anybody to compete with our businesses. So if you guys are into it, I think that's a great
I think if they're local businesses and they're
Yeah.
not a storefront business, I 100% support that.
Yeah, and for the business owners that aren't here, I do have Josh from Main Street in support of vendors on Minor, Tracy from the Historical Society, Bojo's is in support, the Moose is in support, Mountain Prime is in support, Westbound is here. Linda from Margie's Place is Soap Shop, is also in support. So.
Awesome.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I worked with Go Farm. They're a local farm. Hillside guy isn't 100%, and he's kind of high. I have Go Farm coming up this week to chat with project support about setting up maybe in front. Would that be an option? And who would I talk to about that?
I've had long conversations with Go Farm about coming to Idaho Springs.
Well,
So-
I went to the new president,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, and because, yeah, so.
Yeah.
If you'd like to come down, it's a Thursday, you're more than welcome to come join.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. I've had long conversations with Go Farm about bringing one of their units up here, several other things. I've always just been told that we don't fit within their current projected availability.
I argued with that,
So,
so.
oh, good, thank you. You have more.
Jonathan, you had something
I was
to add
gonna
to
say,
that?
if we do go with this plan to do vendors, staff will still work and, like, we'll probably circle with Jared and make sure that there's something similar to an encroachment agreement to how that works in that space. So it's still regulated space on Minor Street, not just any.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
willy-nilly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and again, it would be a conversation with staff about what days are appropriate, what days are not appropriate, times that are appropriate, what spaces can be used, can't be used, Idaho Mall activation potentially, those kind of things. So all of those conversations been had, but I didn't want to go too much further down the road because I wanted your guys' conversation on it before that.
Andy?
So vendors downtown do need to be approved by city council. I
Council,
just want to make that clear that is something, if that was to happen, it would have to be an action by council or approval by council.
All right, you bet.
So we would just bring that back.
Yeah, exactly. So, that is pretty much all I have for you guys. If interested, I did bring, at the top of this page is, the Minor Street Marketplace has been featured in quite a few travel blogs, we were in Forbes, we've been in several other, prominent travel magazines, as well as travel like sites where they submit blogs, as well as several YouTubers that have quite large followings on YouTube have done videos about Idaho Springs and the Minor Street Marketplace. So I have that if any of council is interested in those listings, as well as some pictures of what we did last year, and then the support from several businesses on the sheet as well.
All right. See, that was real good. Anybody have any questions before I move on? All right, well, the last thing on our agenda is public communication and engagement options. John?
Mayor and council, I'll keep this relatively quick because I know we've been here for a bit. I have been doing some research about our previous conversation regarding public engagement that we've had related to the strategic goal of the city council. I've identified 3 platforms that I think are worthy of your consideration. The first one is Granicus Gov Delivery. This is pretty much the gold standard of government engagement efforts in a lot of ways. It provides email and SMS contacts to people. It's kind of a, you have to register it for it situation. And then once you do, you can sign up for a number of different kinds of contact that you'd like to receive from the city. It also provides like templates, and it makes all your communications look really beautiful. It's a really cool program, but it's a little bit expensive. It's probably going to cost us pretty close to $10,000 with training and setup and everything. And then it's a $5,000 yearly cost, annual cost. One really cool thing about Gov Delivery is it builds into the whole Granicus ecosystem that exists. So there's a website that Granicus has. They do something similar to our streaming platform that we could use. A lot of different things that governments use to communicate with people and to provide good, external transparency to their communities. It's a great program. It's certified, it's secure, all that kind of thing. I wanted to leave it in here because it does have a lot of benefits that it offers communities. But one of my concerns about it is just a little bit pricey. So I think that's why I wanted to put that caveat there. The second option in my staff report is a program called Voyant Alert. Voyant Alert is not quite as beautiful as Granicus, but it's significantly cheaper. It's $1,900 and it provides text messaging, phone calls, which is like the voice to text or the, like where you can put text in and it makes a robot voice to call you. And then it also provides emails. The templates aren't as beautiful, but we still have some flexibility to create things that look nice. They're just not quite as fancy. It's unlimited registrations in Idaho Springs. It also offers us some things with emergency communications that I think are really great, especially for our community where proximity to an event that might be happening in our community might be really important. It can give you a route away from an event. It can tell you anything like that. So it's kind of a really cool platform in a lot of ways. And I think for the price, it's really good. In my research, that's the one I think is probably the best one for us right now. Again, we have $10,000 budgeted for this. That's quite a bit under, but that kind of brings me to my last option here, Bang the Table. Bang the Table is something we talked about last time. And basically what it does is it lets you have a conversation within your community about a given topic. And one of the really cool things, it's a legal conversation. So as long as, like we've talked a lot about what is right conversation for city council to have with someone and when it becomes problematic, this limits some of those potentials for negative interactions with people. And when I say negative, just something that could lead to a bad thing. Bang the Table was recently acquired by Granicus. It doesn't have all of the engagement tools we've been discussing, but I think it provides a very robust platform that is worthy of consideration. I put a couple of places that use it. Clear Creek County already uses it. The city of Arvada uses it. Wheat Ridge uses it. There's a lot of places in our immediate area that do use it. It is $5,000 annually, so it is a little bit more on the pricey side. I think we could probably afford to do the Voyant Alert and either Bang the Table, or we could potentially even explore Granicus. And maybe even get, I didn't put this in my staff report, but there is an organization called the Statewide Internet Portal Authority, or SIPA. They provide $5,000 grants that can go to this work to set up and make sure everything is accessible to a community. Our website was through SIPA, it was a SIPA grant. And this program we use to stream our meetings is also a SIPA grant that we got. I think they would work with us to bring the cost down for Bang the Table, if that was something we wanted to do. The last thing I've got here is something that kind of coalesced right when I was trying to turn my staff report into Wonder on time. I got contacted by the county and they have Bang the Table. They're also working on their engagement efforts. And there's a lot of other people in the community that are. Specifically, the rec center has done a lot of work in this space. It may make sense from a resident perspective not to have to go shopping for information at every single organization that exists and to create some sort of clearinghouse that's a lot easier to access what's happening. We might potentially have a cost savings if we were to work with the county and potentially other community organizations. We might just be able to create a better user experience, and we might find that there is no benefit right now. But I really think it's important enough that we have the conversation. So my staff, you might have noticed my request for direction is a little bit vague. I didn't make a specific recommendation. I think we should work with the county and try to have a meeting with stakeholders in the community to see if there's an opportunity to collaborate in that space. I also think it wouldn't hurt us to go forward with Voyant Alert for this year. It's an annual subscription. We're not committed to anything after this year if we do go a different route. And the cool thing about it is we can take all of our data. So if we do have registrations that occur through the Voyant service, and then we end up working with the county or somebody else to build a bigger program, we can just plug that data into the new thing and then we don't lose any subscriptions. I think this is the best route to take because with Voyant Alert, we kind of start having tools that we can communicate. I think we still need to have a conversation about what we're communicating and when we're communicating, but I think having those tools available gives us much more flexibility than we do right now. You know, one of the really cool things about Voyant is you can set up a calendar of notifications that go out. So for instance, I can send everybody a notification that signed up that city council is starting at 6 o'clock or whatever, or that executive session ran a couple minutes long and we will be letting people in as soon as possible. And those kinds of things I think would really go far in our community. So I think that's what my recommendation to you is we grab that low hanging fruit with Voyant if possible, and then we explore a larger collaboration with other community stakeholders.
With Bang Table?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good, Jonathan.
Okay.
Are you looking to create like a 311, like an information clearinghouse with the county and all of our, like the county, the city, and our state, our fellow stakeholders?
Potentially, and there's a couple of softwares that do that out of the box. But one of the things that's tricky for us is because we have a community that has a very small population, but a very big impact of visitors.
Mhm.
And that makes pricing software for our community difficult. If we were able to participate in a larger effort for a 311 like that, that would be functional, it would be, then I think it could be beneficial to everyone, but we need to have a bigger conversation. I think that I could build a 311 system that would work in Idaho Springs if we had to do it by myself. And I really kind of debated whether or not I should include another one of the services that does that, because it can be $12,000, $15,000 annually sometimes. And I kind of thought if we go with a Voyant Alert, we have text messaging ability, phone call ability, email. That means we likely can reach every single resident of the city. Because I really worry about, one of the things I worry about is trying to communicate digitally only. That
Yes.
causes issues. I think if I have that phone call option, I can communicate across every channel I need to communicate across. And then we get into this conversation about what are we communicating? And then the other piece of it is how do people provide feedback back to the city? That's something we haven't quite discussed yet. And that's where we can start building some 311 style forums on our website and making some improvements to the user experience on our website that need to be made to make it easier to access information. I've talked to Wonder about this briefly. Our special events application is a perfect example of something that could be handled just to the website, and they could email the completed form, to staff once it's done. There's a lot of things we can do like that. But when it comes down to it, I think that just being able to talk to people in appropriate venues is the best. The other thing about Voyant, it also allows for you to post social media. So we could potentially post to the city Facebook page and all that kind of stuff as well, or run a Twitter if we decided to do that.
All right, any questions?
Thank you for this thorough breakdown. I appreciate that.
I tried to keep it brief. Sometimes I talk fast, so.
Yeah,
so we
it's got a lot of good
You
information in
do.
here
Okay.
about
Really good.
all of them.
And so Bang the Table does translate over to social media as well?
So yeah, it links in and that's kind of how it works. And one of the things that could potentially happen if we work with the county is they allow multi-entities. So we could have a page, they could have the Clear Creek Forum, but it's tied together. And then people only have to register one time. They can kind of control their whole account from one place. And I think it could save us as much as $3,000 a year, I think, which I know in the grand scheme of municipal finance isn't huge, but that's money we could spend on the website or
Yeah.
anything else.
City money's great. I think that, I know we can't vote or anything like that, but moving towards having a conversation with the entities would be a good idea.
Okay,
Because I think countywide is the way to go. We're all too separate at times. I love what you guys have done integrating the chamber with the downtown area. So that's just like going along those lines of bringing it together.
so is council comfortable with the idea of Voyant alerts for this year, at least to kind of get that going? And
I like the idea of all three, like.
I do too.
phone,
I think-
Email and text. Like,
Yeah,
I
I think
really
you'll
like
hit
that.
the elderly that don't necessarily have the phone systems everybody else has.
A very good point. Yeah.
I'm ready. Go.
okay,
All right. Any more questions? All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. And we went a little long, but I thought it was really a really good meeting.
What?
I want to thank everybody for showing up.